The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Nothing here. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm sorry about that. A little technical glitch. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone, and we're coming to you live from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario. It's a rather sad day here in Canada, the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II earlier today at the age of 96. And now her son, Prince Charles, is now the king and our monarch here in Canada, so God save the king. Strange things are happening these days. We all can sit back and wonder why things have happened. We've got COVID, we've got homelessness, we have so many things that are going on, not to mention the political unrest, not only here in North America, but around the world. We'll be keeping an eye on these things and reporting to them as these events take place and as they continue to play a major part in most people's lives. Because of the passing of Queen Elizabeth, our show has been shortened from 10 o'clock until 1 o'clock. We're cutting off an hour due to the broadcast network affiliates that that REL-MAR McConnell Media Company has in carrying out satellite work and network special programming due to the passing and the coverage of the passing of the Queen and the new King. So there we go. That's where we are right now. Our guest this hour is Joshua Shapiro, and I've had the pleasure of talking to Joshua many times before. And Joshua, welcome back to the X Zone.
Always a great honor and pleasure to be here, Rob. Thank you for having me.
Joshua, you and I go back a long way. We first started talking way back when about the crystal skulls.
Yes, absolutely. I'm still very involved with the crystal skulls. But as an Aries, I have to explore many different subjects. So I've been involved in looking at other things, especially since we've had to be sitting because of what's going on with COVID and pandemics and things like that.
Right. Now, I was talking to you briefly before we went on air, and you're involved with a new organization that is called the Advancement of Humanity. And tell us a little bit about that.
The Center for the Advancement of Humanity, Rob. Yeah, no problem. It's a new project that I've started this year. I actually talked with some friends here in the Atlanta area back in 2018 about creating a center, but we never had any resources to do it. So basically what happened is I just kept the information. I actually woke up the day after we had the meeting and started writing what would the center be and what kinds of things we would do and so on. And I just felt inspired, I'd say March of this year, to go ahead with it, even though we still don't have all of the resources that I would like to see. Basically what we're doing right now with the center, so people get an idea of what kind of information we're going to be sharing, because it's going to be beyond crystal skulls and beyond UFOs, is we've set up a Telegram channel And we've also set up a Rumble video channel. And we just had Gene Decode that we interviewed. So that was a very successful interview. So we're trying to present for people different information, different possibilities about what's really going on behind the scenes and where is our planet headed for the future. And I've actually had a couple of personal spiritual experiences that are guiding me on this, where I think we're going as well, which I put into one of the free ebooks. As I wrote to you, we have 6 free ebooks that we're offering to all your listeners, which we can talk about at some point.
So what are some of the projects that you're going to be undertaking under your new center?
Okay, so one project that we're going to begin, and I don't know exactly how this is going to go, but I just turned 67 this year. I think you're a little bit older than me, if I remember.
Yeah, I'm 200. I'm 212.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. So I feel like I need to share back, because I do a lot of these interviews, but I only get an hour to talk about some of the key information I'm finding. So we have a video producer, Shapiro, who's living in British Columbia, and she helped me with the last 3 interviews that we did for the center, including the one with Gene Decode. So we're going to kind of break it down. I'm going to talk about all these different things I've been researching over time. I think we're going to start with some past life experiences, and we'll get into some of my experiences with crystal skulls. We're going to talk about a lot of different areas, but basically it's going to give me an opportunity to share all the information I've been collecting since my early 20s, since I started. So this is one project we have. Another thing that I'm pursuing is trying to talk with spiritual mediums or channels who are connected. I call them galactics. Other people say ETs, extraterrestrials. So we actually have on our Rumble channel already, we have one of my friends channeled a Pleiadian. We had an Arcturian. And then there's another lady we just met who channeled another extraterrestrial group called the Ponti, which she claims has a base in New Mexico that they work out of. So we're going to be continuing to do interviews with people who claim they have contact with different galactics. And also I want to start sharing information if we can. Of course, it's going to be very controversial about what I think is really going on behind the scenes. I do not believe that our government officials or the major media, not what you're doing, Rob. Of course, you're looking at everything, and this is very, very important. But all the places that we're getting our news, I don't think they're really talking about what's happening behind the scenes in the world. So I think that this will be also a part of one of our projects to do research, interviewing people. Like we interviewed a super soldier who's connected to the secret Space Force. So she had an amazing story to tell. So it's kind of trying to bring out for people from a spiritual perspective what really is going on. Like also, I don't know if anybody's talked about on your show, Tartaria is becoming a very popular subject. I've also got involved with this advanced civilization that I think existed like only 200 years ago here on the Earth. There are some various evidence and stories for that. So we're going to be covering all these kind of different things, and then we just let people decide for themselves. Because like with Tartaria, for myself, it was very difficult for me to accept, but I started looking at it and reading about it and looking at the evidence and everything, and it takes somebody through a shift of how do I perceive the world that I live in. So I think this is going to be projects we're going to help to maybe a different history that actually happened on our planet.
What kind of evidence are you talking about?
Related to Tartaria?
Yeah.
For me, the first evidence that I saw that really convinced me was we have all these buildings that exist in our world. I would use the Taj Mahal and the Arc of Triumph in Paris as 2 examples. Very sophisticated buildings that we are given a story through, let's say, historically. Well, this is how they were built and so on.
Right.
And they're very advanced structures. And I cannot see people in the 1600s, 1800s with no advanced technologies like we have today being able to put together these type of things. Now, the stories told about these kind of buildings is that they were actually involved in a free energy system, which the Tartarians had. And, whoever it was that wiped them out, it was like they keep the experts, I'm not an expert, but the experts who study this say there was some kind of flood that hit the entire planet, like Noah's flood, that
Right.
the buildings were left. And I've actually seen pictures too of huge cities in Europe, like in the 1860s and 1870s, where there's not one single person walking around. All there is are the buildings. And then all of a sudden we had all these, they call them foundlings, orphans, that started coming into these cities in order to repopulate them. So it's a very interesting story. But to me, it's these advanced buildings that still exist. The star forts also is another type of building. Like they have some of these in Holland where it actually looks like a star pattern, but it's very advanced design. I think when we went to St. Augustine in Florida, the fort that they have there, it may be another example of one of these star forts that are built. So it's the buildings, plus also there are many buildings in the world, which doesn't make any sense, where the floor that's on the ground, it has a window, which is half in the ground and half above the ground. So what they're talking about is if the world had this great flood and all the buildings were flooded, they call it the mud flood, then they're actually finding not only many buildings with this situation, but also many floors under existing buildings that are covered by mud. So this is another possibility of it. And
Now, has anybody talked to an archaeologist, an architect, a historian, an expert, or is this just people who are coming up with this new idea because it's a new way of looking at things?
No, I think there is in one of the books I read, there was a person in Russia who is considered to be kind of a historical expert. And he was saying that there's many holes in history. Like one of the examples he gave is different monarchies in different countries. You know, you have your king and queen, and they've been around for. He said if you look at the stories, like if you look at the monarchs in England, you look at the monarchs in Denmark or Germany or France, it's almost like they're having the exact same history and story. They're just changing the names of the people. And so in the book, he presented cases for that.
All right, this is a Russian, but what has a scholar in the United States or Canada said about this theory?
Who said about this theory? Experts here?
Yeah.
Okay, so the challenge with this is, you know that I look at controversial things.
Sure.
You challenged me on crystal skulls, on UFO, and the whole thing.
Right,
This is another one of those subjects.
All right, stand by. We've got to take a commercial break. We'll be right back. X-Zone Nation, Joshua Shapiro is our special guest. And we're going to continue this conversation on the other side because I'm having one heck of a time biting into this one, Joshua. We'll be back. Don't go away. Do you enjoy paranormal, sci-fi romance, yet find yourself tired of the same old themes and storylines? Then you won't want to miss Kahira O'Donnell's latest exciting release, To Taste You Again. Alien Lord Kane McKean knew the moment that his destined mate was born. He watched from afar, waiting for her to grow from child to woman. However, before she was old enough, she was stolen from her home world by flesh pirates. Kane searched 10 long years to find her held in a suspension chamber, a 10-year-old girl in a woman's body. He rescued her and swore to give her time to grow up, but with his very life depending upon winning her as a mate, has he waited too long? Get your copy today. To Taste You Again by Kahira O'Donnell is now available on Amazon or KahiraO'Donnell.com. Welcome back, everyone. Joshua Shapiro is our special guest. And Joshua, is there a website our listeners can go to find out more about you and your new center?
The center really doesn't have a website set up yet. We have a Rumble channel and a Telegram channel, but it's best if people just contact me via email or the Crystal Skull website. So the email address is crystalskullexplorers@gmail.com, and my website with the Crystal Skulls is CSE.crystalskullexplorers.com. And I can guide them to these channels.
Okay, let's get back to this Tartarian theory. Have you checked it out? I mean, now, I don't mean by internet quarterbacks. I mean by actual scholars.
Okay, so all I can do is provide for you what evidence came to me and the reason why I feel strongly about it.
Okay, sounds like
All
a
right,
plan.
Okay, so one thing that I found quite interesting is the Chicago World Fair, because I was born in Chicago. Okay, I know the city pretty well. In 1893, they had this World Fair in Chicago, and they called it the White City because it was like 200 buildings that were the color of white.
Right.
So I have actually been in 3 of those buildings that still exist. The Museum of Science and Industry, the Field Museum, and the Art Museum they have downtown. And I'm also thinking to Soldier Field. I've always looked at it, and it's a very strange looking field for, playing football. And so this may be possible. So here's the history that I read online about, and, this has been reported in books, so this isn't negated in any way. So they say it took them 3 years to make these 200 buildings. And again, we're finding exactly the same type of structure of buildings that we find in Europe, which I was talking about before, very advanced looking buildings. They also were all wired up with electricity, which they say Tesla was involved in this, because Grover Cleveland, who was the president at this time that attended, he went somewhere, I think there was a building by Westinghouse, and he flipped one switch and electricity was lit up on all 200 buildings everywhere. And the thing that I found very mysterious is as soon as the World's Fair ended, almost all the buildings were destroyed, which to me doesn't make any sense because these were beautiful, advanced buildings, very well designed, beautiful architecture.
Right.
But they destroyed purportedly 197 of these 200 buildings.
Right.
And only those 3 were left. There also is reported a walkway, electric walkway that people could walk on, like we have now with escalators.
Yeah.
So to me, these were a lot of strange things that they were showing in 1893. The other thing that also comes up that I saw one time, and unfortunately I did not copy it on Telegram, is somebody produced from a newspaper in the United States in 1852 that was talking about in the western part of what we know as the United States, there were these cities of ruins, very large cities of ruins, like in Chicago, San Francisco, Denver, that there already existed these gigantic cities. And we never heard anything about this in any historical book talking about this. Everything is we traveled out there and we built it from scratch, or the modern cities that we have. Plus also another thing that was very interesting for me was the fires, the tremendous amount of fires that were happening in the United States in all the main cities. Chicago, I think, had fires in 1871 and 1874.
Right.
Okay? So the researchers are saying, could these fires have been done intentional to destroy the Tartarian buildings? Okay. So massive flood, buildings being destroyed, cities without people walking around. This is the evidence that has been produced by the experts. Now, are you going to find a historian that's going to agree with any of this?
Well, first of all, let me ask you about the qualifications of these so-called experts that are spreading this information.
Okay. Well,
who are they?
I have not checked them, and I can't remember the name of the Russian person.
Okay, so if you haven't done your vetting of the information, how can you spread it?
Well, I share it because it doesn't make any sense to me based on these things that I'm talking to you about. These advanced buildings that, like the Arc of Triumph in Paris, a very advanced structure done in the early 1800s when they had no tools to make it.
Whoa. What do you mean they didn't have tools to make it?
They didn't have the advanced tools we have today to make these kind of buildings.
So that doesn't mean they couldn't build them, Joshua.
Well,
Look at the cathedrals, Westminster Abbey. They didn't have the tool. They didn't have the tools that we have today. And yet, look at these magnificent structures.
Right. So this is what I'm saying.
But there's historical proof and historical records substantiating the fact that these were created and built by humans, not Tartarians, not secret societies, not hidden works of art. Yeah, they're all there. And as far as the buildings of the World's Fair that you were talking about, in 1967, in Montreal was the World's Fair. After the World's Fair was finished, the majority of buildings were taken down.
Exactly.
So?
But we're looking at the structure of the building. So what we have to do, Rob, as we always do when I come on, is we have to agree to disagree. I understand your perspective. I understand the way that you look at things and the way you research things. And so from the perspective I come from, as I just say, here's what I found.
Okay.
People have to decide for themselves, check it out. There are many channels on Telegram.
I understand. Please, we've given enough ads for your Rumble and your Telegram channel. And I don't want to be cruel. But to come up with a hypothesis based on one book that has no vetting done to know who this person is, what their qualifications are, how can you... I find it ludicrous that you can actually, or anyone, not just you, anyone can come forward and say, man, this has got to be real, based on the book of one person, because it doesn't make sense.
I understand your perspective.
Yeah.
So
okay.
We come to this point all the time when we talk. It's the same with the crystal skulls. If I tell you I have these experiences, how can I prove them? They're my personal experiences. If I tell you other people that we talk to have similar experiences, that can't prove what they're telling me either. I have to either trust them or I don't trust them. So this is another subject. And this is why we have the center, is because I plan to do exactly what you're talking about, to go in depth, to really research it and work on it a lot more. It's a subject that's caught my interest. And my feeling and intuition is there's something here to be looked at. So that's the reason why I bring it up. But whether I can prove all of these things that I'm telling you, I cannot. But I'm suggesting it as a subject for study. Now, if it does turn out that there is some truth to this matter, then it means that we have to start to consider that maybe the history that we have been taught in school, that there may be problems with it.
We already know that there are problems with it. For example, Christopher Columbus did not discover America. We know that. We know certain fallacies in history for one reason or another that slip through the cracks. But when it comes to major things that we're discussing here tonight, I'm not saying that Christopher Columbus not discovering America wasn't a big lie. It was.
I mean, we have the same problem with the extraterrestrials too. The people will say, "Where is your proof?" "Oh, I saw a UFO in the sky." That's not proof. We can't accept that. You got to prove it. So this is the major challenge that I see that we have right now on almost every level of life. Is even with, are we allowed to talk about the pandemic?
Sure, why not?
Okay. So even with COVID, there are so many different theories that are being talked about. What is the truth? What isn't the truth?
Sure, we'll always have these different things. You've got the people who were talking about the vaccinations, the controversy on that. Yeah. In my experience, all these controversies and all these conspiracy theories are perpetrated by people who really have not done the research. They have not done who, what, when, where, why. They take one little thing, their point of view, and they just go wild with it. What has happened with the internet is that anybody who wants to say anything based on their belief without proof, they do it. In the olden days, in order to do research on something, you went to a library, you read a book. And publishing was totally different than it is today. I think that there's a lot of people who use their own hypothesis in getting the word out there because, number one, everybody wants their 15 minutes of fame. Everybody wants to be the next person on the block who comes up with an idea that has never come up before, or it has come up before. It's been lost in the translation. It's been lost in the shelves of the books and history or whatever. We need to get back to basics. That's why when you were talking to me about the author of this book, hey, where did he get his information? What proof does he have? What are his credentials? Hey, I'm not saying that it may not be true. All I'm saying is, well, where's the beef? Yeah.
Right. And I'm just saying it's interesting. It's something that I think needs to have a serious research, it's like you said, because there's a lot of strange things that come up around this.
Oh, all right. But how many books have you found looking into this that are referenced to this Tartarian, is it?
Yeah, Tartarian. Okay, so there's one other thing maybe that might satisfy you, which I saw. But again, this could be fake. So there's a map I saw from 1771.
Right.
That was purportedly in the Encyclopedia Britannica, which I think most people accept as a source of information that's related to life here on Earth. And it shows Grand Tartaria in the location of Russia and China. Another thing I heard, but again, we don't know if this is true or not because a lot of people don't like the information being given on Telegram, is purportedly Putin in a talk that he was giving publicly. I heard when it was translated, he made mention of Tartaria as if he had some information or knowledge about it. So is this map, or there are purportedly other old maps that show Tartaria existing in this area? Is that correct, or is somebody fabricating it?
Or is it something like the fabled continent of Atlantis? Do we know what the word Tartarian means?
We do have people who are called Tartars, but I cannot remember what the definition is given to them.
I'm just wondering if Putin did mention the word Tartarian, if there's a Russian word that would explain that would give the definition of Tartarian. I don't know. Listen, you and I have to take our break again. Please stand by. X Zone Nation, our guest this hour is Joshua Shapiro, and Joshua and I will be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
So I was watching the XZTV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Joshua Shapiro is my guest to this hour, X Zone Nation, and that's a controversial topic. You're right, but I'd really like to know what you find out about that, because maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is real.
Well, I think you make a good point to try to find as much scientific evidence and proof instead of, people's opinion and so on. So, but like I said, this is the whole point of our center, is once we have access to the resources that I anticipate that we will eventually have, we're going to be able to really travel all over and do very extensive work. And I don't think there are that many books that have been published about Tartaria so far. Mostly it's videos that are coming out and people talking about it and so on. So.
Well, you know as well as I do in these days with CGI and all the neat software out there, people can produce something and put it up very fast, whether it's true or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what have you done recently with reference to UFOs and the ET question?
Well, of course, for me, on the highest level, I cannot accept the possibility that we are the only intelligent life that exists in God's universe.
Yeah.
I have also had my own experiences where I've seen things in the sky that are, they look like UFO, whether they're clouds or whatever. But what I'm really trying to work on right now, especially through the center related to the question of the UFO, is to have the more direct contact with the galactics themselves. And again, this is going to be extremely controversial. Like if we have a spiritual medium that we're talking to who says, I have a Pleiadian that's speaking through me, again, can we prove it or not prove it? So my job is to just collect information and see if let's say one person who's speaking for the Pleiadians and there's another one speaking, are they talking about the same kind of information? Do they have the same kind of insights? To me, the Pleiadians in particular, I think, we have a lot of legends of Pleiadians showing up. We have Billy Meyer stories where he saw them in Switzerland. They look like us, but they're more spiritually evolved. So this is kind of the role that I'm taking with it, is to see, can I actually talk with them without meeting them in person? Because the whole point of the paranormal is that there are many dimensions of existence and dimensions that exist beyond the physical realm. And I think that there are quite a few galactics that are from higher dimensions or other dimensions. And so the only way that we have to communicate with them is telepathically or by working with specialized people who have the talent to be able to do this. So why do you think there's such a thirst, such a desire by a very small part of society to answer the question about the extraterrestrials? Well, I know when I was younger, you didn't want to admit if you believed in it because you were afraid that people, would make fun of you. They would call you crazy. My family called me crazy. My brother, I forget the name that he called me, but I think the reason that more people are looking into it now is that more people are having some kind of an experience related to it. And, whether they have a dream, whether they're seeing a craft, some people are talking about that they're actually meeting extraterrestrials. And, I can't verify what Carrie Cassidy talks about, but she's saying that our whole civilization for many thousands of years, based on all the whistleblowers that she's been talking to, and some of these people are reputable scientists and engineers and so on, that they have affected our civilization for many years. So I think we're in a period of time right now, Rob, where the truth on everything is starting to come out. There have been prophecies about this, both the light and the dark. The truth is coming out about everything. And if these, I call them galactics, really have been involved in the evolution of humanity in some way, and I think that this may be part of the reason why a lot more people are wanting to look at it, is they're starting to realize there's too many people who are telling stories or having experiences. There's got to be something to it. I want to know what the truth is about it. And could it be the Santa Claus factor? I don't understand what you mean by that. Can you explain that? Sure. A lot of people believe in Santa Claus, but he's not real. Right. No, I don't believe that it has to do with that. Okay. I think that we definitely are having contact with other beings. I mean, it's the same thing. I think you mentioned about Hollow Earth, or maybe it was the other show I did today. No, I don't buy that either. Right. Well, that's another place where people talk about that they may have their bases.
But what do all these people have in common? You know, what's the common thread? For so many people to believe or talk about so many off-the-wall topics, these people must have something in common. Is it because they want answers to a question that they've heard? Are they seeking the truth, or are they just perpetrating and helping this fantasy continue?
No, I think what it is it's a link to the spiritual essence of who we are. The possibility of other life and other places, other dimension, other worlds. The connection that we have with everything is spiritual. And most of the people, now this is just for me, that I meet who have an interest in extraterrestrials or UFO or whatever, they also seem to be very spiritual, that they've had their own spiritual experiences, they're following a spiritual path. And if they believe in spirit, it means they believe that the essence of who we are is a spiritual being who is immortal, and that we're incarnating here on earth to have experiences.
Okay, that's one way of looking at it. But the other side of spirituality that is within the organized religious philosophies is totally different. For example, God created the heavens and the earth. God created mankind and womankind. So why do you think that there are all these different ways of looking at spirituality?
I think there are many different ways because the people who are on a spiritual path are experiencing other aspects of the reality of Earth that cannot be perceived through the physical senses.
Okay.
All right, because if we only look at reality being perceived by the physical senses, I read this one report that says we're only seeing 1% of the reality that exists on this Earth through our physical senses. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I do believe that because I have contact with spirits. I have contact with galactic beings that are talking to me telepathically. I feel them around me, but I cannot see them. I cannot touch them. But there's someone there. It's the same thing I tried to describe to you with crystal skulls. There's some kind of living consciousness that's communicating through the skulls.
Or
using it as a conduit.
Or is it something within you that is creating this connection, this conduit, that it has nothing to do with an outside force? It's all within you.
Well, ultimately, from the highest level of the spirituality, I understand you're correct. Everything is God. Everything that exists on every level is God. So it is, therefore, would be an aspect of ourselves that we're communicating with. But our perception, because we're individuals, I see you as separate from me. But on a spiritual level, we're brothers. We're family. Okay. But on a physical level, we're different people. We have different experiences. I mean, it's obvious to the people listening to us. We have totally different views on how we look at things, but we always honor each other. We're friends. We're brothers.
Yes, we are.
That's why we talk all the time. So I think what it is that it's this perspective of only looking at it from the physical perspective. I think there are scientists who are looking at the paranormal and actually have developed some devices, but I'm not a scientist. So I don't know what they've developed, but I sense that they have some kind of equipment and devices they have, which is showing them that there are these other realms of reality that exist. But it's based on energy and vibration.
Okay, so help me understand this. The extraterrestrials that you communicate with and others communicate with, in your opinion or in your belief, are they the creators of modern day humanity?
I would say, based on my experiences and the information that's resonated for me, that they have been involved in our evolution, but they are not our creators.
Okay.
In other words, there is a creator, there is a God,
right,
that is the source of all things. But they could have visited here and influenced the life that existed on the earth that eventually created humanity as we know it. That's a possibility.
So are they keeping an eye on us? Are they helping us with our evolution as we progress from where we are today to where we're going to be in the future?
It's my opinion, yes. it's almost like there are angels watching over us, especially if we are, as I forget the name of the movie I saw where they said humanity was their children. It was fictional.
Right.
If we are somehow like their children, that they were involved in the creation of us, yes, as parents, they would be very concerned and watching over us. Now,
But as parents, they can't be proud of us.
well, this is what I believe as a spiritual person from the perspective of Creator. Creator gave us free will. Okay. Now, a lot of people are not happy with what's going on in our planet right now. I mean, you
Sure.
talked about that, and I think many people see this. So, is this just a creation of humanity? Do we have to get ourselves out of it? Will we never have any extra help, from angels or more spiritually advanced beings to help us? My opinion is, and there's no way I can prove this, I think that there's certain galactics who do not honor us, who are using this planet for their own purposes. And there are many stories that talk about this. I don't know if abductions are connected or the Greys or whatever you want to talk about. But I believe that they're breaking God's law, that they're interfering in our free will. And I think, therefore, if there is that type of galactic or extraterrestrial interfering, that there are loving ones who say we need to come and help humanity, because there's these beings that are trying to totally almost get rid of us in a sense, take over the planet. So, are those science fiction stories, just stories, or is there actually basis of fact? Do the whistleblowers who've been involved with the secret projects connected to this know about these things? So I think all these kind of things are coming out. And one other thing I would say, which I can't prove, it's my intuition, the Earth is a very important part for the entire universe. I think we have a lot of beings that are watching what's happening here and somehow have an almost vested interest in the result, especially that our world, and this is what I believe, is eventually going to see total peace and harmony. I do not believe that all this chaos that's going on is going to continue and it's going to get worse. And I'll go out on a limb, and I believe what I've read, that the passing of the Queen is highly, highly significant.
All right, stand by. We've got to take our final break. And X Zone Nation, Joshua and I will be back after this break as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone. Don't go away. To be accosted in her bed and abducted by aliens was the last thing Michelle expected. Yet the fateful morning of her destined death changed everything. Lord Lan Ramos, Alpha King of Vidar, the monstrous befanged alien looming over her bed, was her destined mate come to save her from certain death. He is a telepathic mute shifter. Can Michelle accept him and his animal? Once on Lan's home planet, Michelle becomes increasingly psychic, revealing her as the fabled Oracle of Vidar. As factions conspire to destroy them, will they overcome mounting threats? Will Michelle's growing gifts save them, or ultimately destroy her? Don't miss this sci-fi shifter romance with charismatic and engaging characters. Get your copy today. The Oracle of Vidar, available on Amazon or CahiraO'Donnell.com. That's CahiraO'Donnell.com. Welcome back, everyone. Joshua Shapiro is my guest this hour. Joshua, before we went to the break, you said that you had read somewhere where the passing of Her Majesty today is part of a. How did you say that? A part of, or the beginning of?
No, I think it's going to be very significant. Because I interpret it as a sign that total transformation in a positive way is about to happen. That the control that England has had over the planet, the Prime Minister was just changed, the Queen has now passed. I think that there are a lot of things involved with England that people don't know about, and I see this as a sign that there's this positive shift that's going to come. Whether that's true or not, I can't say it's my interpretation. When I saw that she was sick yesterday, I don't know if she went to the hospital or people were visiting her, or she couldn't do something. I thought maybe this is when she's going to pass. And then, of course, there are many people who think that she already passed quite a few years ago, and they've just been portraying that she's still alive. So
People have way too much time on their hands if they actually believe that. Way too much time in their hands. That's just like the people who believe that President Kennedy actually survived the assassination in Dallas, Texas, and he was still alive, but because of the bullet wound, he was impaired. I just say, God, people, find something else to do with your time and do something that helps people and helps the world instead of all this bull crap that you keep spewing out there. We were talking before about the Arc de Triomphe. We were talking about the oh my Lord, what's the name of that place in India? Taj Mahal. What about the pyramids?
the pyramids is also a very advanced structure. Now, whether the pyramids would be connected to Tartary, I've not seen any indication of that.
Yeah.
Most people think that, but what a lot of people think, which would be like with Atlantis, that there have been more advanced civilizations, maybe thousands of years ago, that existed on the earth, which these pyramids were created. I mean, even in Peru that I visited too, they have some type of pyramid type structures there as well. So, could we duplicate that again now with our modern technology?
Right.
I hear different opinions about that, whether we can or we can't. I mean, I've only been to one pyramid that was near Mexico City, and the energy of that structure was so powerful it almost completely knocked me out.
Really, eh?
Yeah, it was. I had this tremendous headache, and I had to really rest, and I was actually walking on it and standing on it and looking at it. And again, it's a structure that, how did they make this? It was just so advanced, unbelievable, so tall, so huge. And I may have also picked up when I took a picture, I saw there was a strange light that appeared around the pyramid I don't remember seeing. So I'm not sure what that was, but it came out in one of the pictures I took. And of course, I had to take the crystal skulls and put them on the pyramid so that they could absorb the frequencies and energy of that. So,
fascinating. So when you're talking about the resources you need for your center, are you talking about money?
I'm talking about all kinds of resources. It's not just financial. I'm talking about the ability to bring in talented people, hire people, etc.
Are you going to be hiring scholars? Are you going to be hiring scientists? Or are you just going to go with the esoteric aspect?
Well, the how can I say it? The motivation of what we will be doing will be esoteric or spiritual, but we will try, when we are going to present information, we will try to include both scientific and paranormal, both, to see if they will agree. Because sometimes the scientists and the people who do the research on the paranormal will agree. So we're going to do a thorough research on that before we, publish it. It's not like what I do now. I'm just one person.
Sure.
I find stuff and I make a free ebook or whatever, and I say to people, here's something interesting I found. Decide, does this make sense to you? Do you think about it? If you're interested, here's some other videos I found. No, this is going to be at a much, much higher level.
And who have you got involved so far?
The only people that we have involved so far are what I would call extended family in various countries. Friends. I've talked to them about the idea and the projects.
Right.
And it's pretty much individuals like myself coming from a spiritual perspective who have dedicated their life to doing this. And they want to help to set up what I call a sister center. But they have to wait on us to create our main center in Atlanta and start to get our financial resources in place before we're going to be able to do that. So for right now, all we're basically doing is just, through our videos and Telegram, just sharing what kind of subjects are we going to be researching? What kind of people will we be interviewing and talking to?
All right, Joshua, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Take care of yourself. And Tartarians, we're going to be checking that out, and I'll send you what we find out about the Arc de Triomphe as well as the other mega structures that we've been talking about.
That'll be great.
All right, Exonation, when we come back at the top of the hour, we'll be speaking with Reverend Helen Reese in Australia. All this and more tonight here on the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada.